Welcome back for another edition. This is our second part in Money Scripts 2.0. And in the first part, I went over money scripts, what they are, how they're formed, some of the nuances of how I view money scripts today as being written by a protective part of ourselves to protect a real vulnerable part, and I best speak an exiled part of ourselves. So I would like to get into the behaviors because we talked about beliefs drive behaviors. And the theme of this podcast is every financial behavior makes perfect sense when we understand the underlying belief. So there are no illogical behaviors. There are no illogical money behaviors, financial behaviors. Now, there's certainly hurtful, problematic, harmful behaviors, but they always make perfect sense when we understand the belief that drives that behavior. So we have the wounding, that vulnerable hurt part of ourselves. We have the protective part that comes up with the belief that, if we believe this and have the behavior that supports that belief, then that part will never be hurt. And so that's how our beliefs drive our behavior. So it makes perfect sense, whatever the behavior is. So if you have a behavior, or someone you love or know has a behavior and you feel it's illogical, let that just be a sign that you don't understand what the belief is. You may never understand, or that person may not feel safe enough telling you what the belief is, and in most cases won't even know themselves what the belief is, right? If you have a behavior of yourself that seems so illogical and it continues to seem illogical, that's because you haven't gotten down to what is the belief. And there may be all sorts of protective parts of you that are keeping you from admitting or finding out what that belief is, because it won't, there'll be shame. There'll be shame that, oh, I can't believe that. I know that's not true. And these emotional parts of us are young. They don't really care about logic. They believe what they believe. And that's oftentimes in doing a meditation or something where we'll ask people to please suspend judgment on yourself. Please suspend criticism on ourselves, because we have these judgmental and critical parts of ourselves that will keep us from uncovering the truth, the beliefs of these parts, because they so much fear that we're going to be shamed or criticized for even giving voice to that belief. So if it's not adding all up, you haven't found all the numbers to the equation. So if 2 doesn't equal 4, it's because you haven't found that other +2, or the +1 and +1 that equal 4. It will always be logical. All right. I've never spoken about that in these terms before, so that's what's kind of fun about this podcast, is I just kind of go with what shows up. It's much the same that I write. So let's talk about these financially hurtful money behaviors, not illogical, financially hurtful. And I think there's 13 of these, and there could be more, but these are the 13 that have kind of come up over the years. The first one is just financial denial. Just don't want to look. I don't want to look at reality because reality is really painful. So we will just spin it to something else. We will see a different view of it. What's coming up for me right now is something called spiritual escape, and that is not seeing things in reality. In other words, a person can seem to be really spiritual and actually be super disconnected from what reality is. One of my teachers, Russ Hudson, used to kind of be annoyed by folks that seem to be so spiritual. And he said one time somebody was telling him, you're really messing with my the energy here, or you're just messing with my presence. And he would like to say, I'm not messing with anything. I am your presence. That what is happening right now is reality. And what I'm doing is I'm messing with your trance. So I always thought that was humorous. So financial denial. In talking with Russ Hudson and the Enneagram, which I've never done a podcast on the Enneagram. Super helpful, super great personal development tool, but super deep. That's probably why I haven't done a podcast on it. Where you have your type 9 energy that kind of creates reality, creates the reality they want to have rather than what's really, really there. And a lot of us do this. In fact, that energy is 15% of the population has that type of energy. So it's pretty, financial denial is really common. Yeah, I could go on and tell stories forever. Another financially hurtful money behavior is underspending. Yes, I just said underspending. How can that possibly be a financially hurtful money behavior? That's at least was my view. The first time I ever heard that, like, you're kidding me. You can probably guess where my money scripts fall into, which category would be money vigilance, right? Money is to be saved, not spent. So this can become really hurtful. And I've talked about examples on the podcast of clients I've had where this was so severe, they didn't fix boards in their deck. They didn't encase exposed wires. They drove really old cars that didn't have the safety features available today, and they were elderly. So we absolutely can underspend. We don't get physical, so I don't want to spend the money. I don't want to spend the money for this or for that. That is really key to our physical and our emotional well-being, right? Oh, financial therapy, that's so expensive. Well, it is. And what's more expensive? A hemorrhaging financial condition, or spending the money to plug the leak, so to speak. Likewise, overspending, that's more common. We kind of have an epidemic of that in the United States, where we're overspending. Again, under all of these behaviors is a wounded, traumatized part of us. And whether we're underspending or we're overspending, our protectors are attempting to get those needs met. Overspending, how often does that come down to wanting to feel seen, wanting to feel heard, wanting to feel worthy? And the way these parts of ourselves have tried to bring this to ourselves is through buying it stuff, and hence the overspending. And again, we are usually not aware of this until we take the time, until we have the guidance, till we feel safe enough to really take a look under the hood of the behavior. Financially enabling is another, where we are, usually this is with parent to child, doesn't have to be, where we're funding them, paying for rent, life expenses, or giving money every time they need it. Usually there's a huge amount of guilt. That is the wounded part driving that behavior. Guilt over a divorce, guilt over working too much when the child was young, and that part trying to absolve and soothe that guilt. About poverty, I think I recently wrote a column on that. I don't know if I recorded a podcast on that or not, but I like the comment of one of Gandhi's good friends who said Gandhi has no idea how much money it takes to keep him poor. And sometimes that can have, there can be a part that just feels, again, guilty around having money, that I would not feel that guilt if I didn't have the money. And that's just one of many examples. Financial enmeshment, that's having inappropriate conversations with kids. And we know that there's lots of conversations with kids that need to happen, but the ones that don't need to happen are inappropriate conversations, where an adult really needs to be talking to another adult about their fear around the money, or their anger around the money, or how they're viewing their partner around how they handle money. Those are not discussions to have with kids. Poor financial decisions are another issue that obviously are hurtful behaviors. Workaholism, we've talked a lot about that, and the pain that's driving workaholism. Of course, financially avoidant, or not financially avoidant, but financial vigilant. Financially vigilant folks often fall into the workaholism category. There's compulsive buying. So compulsive buying also can be compulsive shopping. You don't have to buy to be compulsive. You can just spend 8 hours a day shopping. And again, to soothe, to medicate vulnerable parts of ourselves. Gambling, the same thing, hoarding, and having such emotional attachment to things that the thought of getting rid of them immediately triggers a vulnerable part, triggers pain. What is that about? Being financially dependent, which is the flip side of financial enabling. In most cases, being a child that relies on money from a parent. But this can be financially dependent on government, can be financially dependent on anything. And then squandering sudden windfalls, which we talked about that in the first part of this. So those are the hurtful behaviors. What do we do with them? How do we rescript them? And this is, in a way, what this whole podcast series is about. How can we change these behaviors? The easy answer is financial therapy. And that's typically what I give a reporter, and reporters don't like that. They want step 1, step 2, step 3, healed, right? So I want to just give you some things that might help in rescripting your money scripts, or if you're a financial planner, coach, or a therapist, in helping your client rescript money scripts. And the first thing to do is the obvious. Try a cognitive approach. Give them more information. Oh, you're overspending? Great. How about if we sit down, figure out the things to cut in your budget and get that under control? And if they go, oh, great, let's do that. We'll cut this. Will you do that? Yep, great. And then you see them again in another month. They've cut everything. They're starting to fund their 401k or their emergency fund, and life is good, right? Probably, if that would have worked, they probably would have already done it. I'm just saying that maybe that works 20% of the time, but 80% of the time it doesn't. But you don't know until you try it. So try to give them the information. And that also lines up with something called cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. But when that doesn't work, we need to go deeper. It's probably an emotional wounding. It's probably based in trauma. So there's 3 things that I could suggest that you could try on your own or with a friend. Or if you're a therapist or planner, you could try with your client. The first one is called The Work by Byron Katie. The second is group rescripting. I'm going to hit on that really quick because most of us aren't working with groups or don't have a group to work with. And then another one is called a hopes and fears meditation. And then all that can work. It might even change the behavior and solve the problem, but if none of that really is working, then we need to look at financial therapy. So let's take a look at The Work. Byron Katie, became quite well known over 4 questions that she would ask. And oftentimes, I never heard her apply these to money, but it would be like, well, my partner's a jerk. It usually was in terms of relationship. And so she would ask 4 questions. Is that true? Can you absolutely know your partner's a jerk? Absolutely, without 100%. How do you react when you think when you think of your partner as being a jerk? How do you show up? What are your thoughts? And then who would you be if you didn't think that? How would you act? How would you show up around your partner? And then she does something called a turn it around. Like, well, in what context, or how are maybe you the jerk in the relationship? So with money scripts, ask yourself, now you can do this journaling, just you can have these 4 questions, but you can ask it if you're a professional of your client, is that true? Is it true that you got to work hard for money? Well, oftentimes the first answer is certainly it's true. Then you kind of double down on that. Can you absolutely know that in every case, in every application, it's absolutely true that you've got to work hard if you want money? Well, now that you frame it that way, well, maybe not. Maybe not in every case. Now, even if the person says, yes, absolutely 100% in every case, it's true, you move on to the next question. How do you react? What happens inside of you when you believe that money script? You could even ask them, to locate where in your body do you find that money script? What happens? What happens inside of you when you believe that. So they might come up with an emotion or feeling or a physical feeling or constriction or something like that. And how do you behave believing that money script? Well, man, I work hard. I work so hard. I'm tired. Um, I'm at the office all the time. I don't have much of a life outside of it. Whatever. Then you ask them, who would you be, or what different version of you might there be if the opposite of that money script was true? How would you show up if you didn't have to work hard in money? Show up. Wow, if I didn't work as much, well, I guess I'd have more time. I guess I wouldn't be as stressed. I'd have more time to work out. I'd have more time for relationships. I can't imagine that would be true, but yeah, I can feel more of a lightness in my body if that wasn't true. You might say, well, what would happen if the opposite was true, that you didn't have to work for money and the money would show up? Oh my God. It would completely change my life. And so what you want to do is to help yourself or help that other person start building flexibility around that. Well, could it be possible that you could not work hard for money and money show up? Name some of the ways that could possibly happen. And if you can't see it happening for yourself, do you know anybody else that's true for? And also, could you work hard for money and the money not come in? And could you work hard for money and money not come in? Those are 4 variations. Could you not work and receive things that are more valuable than money? So you just explore that with yourself or the person. Another one that I like are the hopes and fears meditation. So I want to take you through this right now. I don't think I've done this. So I'd like you just to start by focusing on a firmly held money script. So, to whatever degree you can, try and center yourself, take some deep breaths. If you're driving or you're walking, that's hard. But just center yourself and search for a really firmly held, a true money script that you're aware that you have. I've been using that you've got to work hard for money as one. It can be one of a jillion things. And just repeat it slowly, just over and over. Repeat that money script. And if it feels right, you could pause me because I'm probably going to move through these a little bit too fast. But just peel into that money script, repeating it over and over. And try to suspend judgment on that money script. You might have to suspend judgment to even try and find the money script. Because you have that part of yourself that wants to judge that you shouldn't have that money script or criticize that you have that money script. And those parts are trying to protect you from it for good intention, oftentimes to keep criticism at bay or shame at bay. Just ask those parts of you to give yourself a little space and allow yourself to become curious about that money script, understanding that you are not that money script. So see if you can separate yourself from the money script, understanding it's just a part of you that believes it. It is not you. and that you just want to get to know that part of you that believes that money script without judgment. Your purpose isn't to take that money script away or to shame that part for having it. You want to understand more about it and see if there's any sensations in your body or any emotions or images that come up as you focus on that money script. And whatever comes up, just stay with that. If some emotion comes up, welcome that emotion, whether it's tears or anger or fear. Just stay with that and welcome it. That part has something to say, has something to tell you. And ask the part of you that believes the money script what the circumstances were, or what was the situation when that money script first appeared. Oftentimes, the part takes us back to an early time in our life, not always. But what was the circumstance? What was the genesis of that money script? Regardless of if you can find the genesis, sometimes it feels like it's just always been there. There wasn't one specific thing or time that it popped in. That's very normal, especially with generational money scripts. Ask that part of you, what were the hopes that it had that believing this money script would produce? What were the intentions of this money script? What did it hope would happen? What did it hope it would avoid? All the good intentions that the part had for believing this money script. And then ask the part, what are the fears? What are the fears of this part of you if this money script wasn't true? Or what are the fears of not believing this money script? Or not behaving in this manner? What does it fear will happen? And then finally, ask this part of you if there's anything else that it wants you to know about this money script. Okay, well, I didn't get to the group exercise, but I think that's okay. So, if you want to know more about money scripts, there's books that I've co-authored on it. Facilitating Financial Health, if you're a professional, is great. The Financial Wisdom of Ebenezer Scrooge, Wired for Wealth, is all about money scripts. These are our resources that you could go to. Okay. It's good to be with you. I hope this was helpful for you. I look forward to being with you again next week. Take care.